Okay, hey everybody, happy Sunday to you. Got Aquaman on the board. Gonna be sharing this with the page real quick so everybody can see me. And let's see here. There we go. Live. Okay, got that going. Now everybody can see me. Hey, so gonna be drawing Aquaman, and we're actually gonna make this guy cool because so many people say that Aquaman, basically sucks. And it's not true. It couldn't be farther from the truth. This guy is a phenomenal character, and I really, really enjoy drawing him. Been a huge fan of his for years, and we golf together. Yeah, yeah. Um, no, seriously. I've always been a fan of the classic. No offense to Jason Momoa and the modern, version at all, because I think that's a great fit for the cinematic universe. However, I really, really dig the whole thing of seeing how they evolve. So that helps too in that way. But yeah, I tell you what, this character gets picked on and gets his chops busted all the time. Everybody says, Aquaman sucks. Well, the thing is no, he doesn't. He's one of the strongest characters in the DC universe, and no one tends to notice him because of the fact that he's so underrated. So hey, Roland, thanks for joining. And I am a classic Aquaman fan. I really dig not necessarily the Golden Age version, but more of the 70s, 80s version. The Super Friends and all that, because that was when he was most underrated, but yet some of the best stories out of his comic books. And a lot of people ditch on that and diss on it and whatnot. And it's just, man, it's just comics. Have a good time. But as far as this character goes, though, I decided to do this one. When I posted him on the list, I was all about uh, making it as dramatic and cool as possible and showing that this dude is really a stand-up force in the DC universe. I mean, you know, he almost drowned uh, Batman at one point when they got into a tussle, and that was a comic book in the '80s. I'm gonna raise that. I've decided I'm gonna raise that trident. Um, but he almost drowned Batman. He beat the crap out of Superman a couple of times, and it was just crazy. Um, he didn't like beat him down to the point to where he was considered a win, but he went toe to toe with him a few times, and they scrapped up pretty hard, and nobody ever recognizes Aquaman for that. You know, um, that's one of the things. Um, this character also is the biggest defender of water and sea life in the DC universe. And think about this: as humans, what's the one resource we can't go without? I mean, we would die without water. There is no doubt about it. I mean, we can go without food, we can go without anything else, but air and water we have to have. If we don't, we're dead. So that's always had a high impact for me with this character as well, because I'm a very green person. I'm not, all out preaching, about it and whatnot, but I am a very world conscious person in that regard. But yeah, it's awesome to see how this all pans out, because this dude is just, like I said, he is very underestimated, and so many people don't give him his due, as it were. Um, Unless he's some kind of modern, hardcore superhero that's it's just one of the modern takes on what people consider a superhero now versus what goes on then. He didn't change with the times very much until the 90s, but still, again, I think he was pardon the pun, but I think he was watered down. I think that's one of the big things that happened to him is they tried to revive him in the 90s and create him into a character that could be followed and whatnot, and it never really took off. They cut off his hand and gave him all these deep stories, but it never held up. And I think a big part of that is the fact that when it happened, there was a big movement in comics, and everybody was looking for the modern characters. And Batman took an evolutionary step forward, and Superman did as well, with the Lois storyline where they were getting married and living together and all that. And then you had even Guy Gardner as, his version of the Green Lantern, the second Green Lantern, or the third Green Lantern, actually, because John Stewart was the second after Hal Jordan. That's one of those things where they just evolved those characters, but DC failed and dropped the ball with Aquaman. They went from cutting his hand off and giving him this water-powered hand because he's Atlantean, and went with that storyline and all this mess going off, and gave him the long hair because he went into a depression after he lost his hand and stopped ruling and just went into cave life for a while, and it was crazy. It was crazy stuff. That's when he grew his hand out, and then he got caught in a time warp or something, and it turned out to be the alternate Green Lantern and the alternate Flash and the alternate Aquaman all in one storyline. And it was just crazy the way they were doing that. I don't follow a lot of that anymore, and I tend to look at what Jim Lee did when he brought back the original look for Aquaman. So I think that that's a big plus in our favor for comic fans that enjoy this character, because so many people have beat Aquaman down so badly that it's not enjoyable anymore. He's kind of the butt of everybody's jokes, and he's not. As a character, he's just not that way. That's why, DC flopped on the Aquaman movie that was going to happen, and then they revamped with this new Snyder rendition that's coming out for the JLA movie, which I'm all for. I'm cool with that. I just don't think that Aquaman's been given his due, and that's one of those things I wanted to do this and show. This dude can look cool without being, something overkill with all the hair and whatnot, and can go with the classic look and not have to worry about it. The problem with Jim Lee's version is they didn't give him a story. They just had him there, they had him there as a character filler because they needed access to the water element. And that's the way they brought them up, is Jim Lee's JLA was more elemental based rather than the purpose of whatever they were there for their character dynamic. So, good Lord, he brought in Plastic Man of all things instead of, Martian Manhunter. So they wanted a comic relief for it, and it just didn't hold up. And no disrespect to Jim at all. I'm just saying I love those books, and I'm glad they went the direction they did with Cyborg, because I really loved that rendition, and it translated onto film perfectly, which is the same exact storyline, and that's what they're using it for. But it still looks a little bit like a knockoff from the Marvel stuff from the the little blue cube and whatnot, as it's affectionately known now. The Tesseract and whatnot. So people need to think about that, but it is what it is. We've got Darkseid coming out for the Justice League. And they've got Thanos and the Avengers. Looks a little bit like the same thing, but we won't go there because I dig them both. I really do. I like the cinematic universe that they're going with. A lot of people don't because they're screaming, "It's not classic heroes," but you know, to each their own. I'm cool with it. As far as this character goes, though, I really, really got hooked into this guy when he was with the Super Friends and the Justice League and whatnot. And back in the cartoon days of the 70s and late 70s, early 80s, I remember being a little kid and seeing this guy come across, and it was like they used to have this wonky techno sound that came out whenever he would call on animals, and it was just awesome to me. However, now it's like ridiculous, but when you're a little kid, it's superheroes, so you don't really take into consideration that stuff. But yeah, I mean, that wouldn't fly today, but it is what it is. And the little rings would come off of his forehead, when he put his hand up and whatnot, and he'd ride those giant seahorses or the dolphins, or he'd lasso up 2 turtles and ride them, which you never knew where he got the lasso from, but he'd ride on those 2 giant turtles, and it was just always fun stuff. But that was part of it, is the escape from the fantasy itself, from reality. That's part of what made it have the nostalgic quality it did, is because of the fact that they would do just anything, and you were in awe. At least I was as a little kid. But as I grew up, I mean, I got into my teenage years, and a little later on, I had a problem with Aquaman. I didn't get on the bandwagon to where I hated him and wouldn't buy his books or whatnot. I still collected them and still would actually defend the character and the book and tell everybody, you're missing this great arc of this, or you're missing this great arc of that. So, hey Vince, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And so many people would just come across and be weirded out by it and whatnot. It's just strange the way that goes. So, but it busts me up whenever I hear that sound effect, and I mean, there's no missing it. But and I'm not going to impersonate it here, because I will not put that out on social media, me doing that goofy noise. I mean, I do the voices and stuff, but no. Gonna cut in this nose here, and I'm just glad that I can make this dude look cool in comparison to what the ladies might find hot with Jason Momoa, because like I said, I'm not knocking the dude. I love the guy as an actor. Post Baywatch days, I did not like that show. But yeah, I enjoyed him in Frontier and pretty much everything else he's been in. I mean, I even liked him in the Stallone movie. What was it? Something Bullet? Yeah. I can't even remember the name of it because I didn't like the movie, but I liked him in it. And I liked him as Conan as well, because that was really cool. But whatever. Because that actually went by the Burroughs books. Really, really cool. Where he was a pirate. A slave and a pirate and all that. And, everybody's like, well, Conan's such a great hero. No, he's not. If you ever read the books, Conan is like the original anti-hero. Crazy stuff, man. He was a pirate. He was a thief. He was a marauder at one point. I mean, just all out, not kidding around. Definitely an all-in, sword-swinging terrorist. There'll be people that grab at me about that. You call Conan a terrorist? But, yeah, that's exactly what he did. He ran around terrorizing people. in those old books, they used to bust me up because I'd read them as a kid and I'd be like, wow. So I'm going to make this looking like he's up looking at, this is pointed like at the chest of whoever's looking through here, through this view. I'm going to put it like it's looking at their chest and he's looking up at their face like, yeah, do something. He always has crystal clear blue eyes, so I'm going to keep this very open. I'm not even going to tweak with the sides of it like I normally do and whatnot, because I don't want to mess with that. I'm going to draw on this big glove back here. You won't see it from this hand, except for right here. Put a little glove on there. Just making sure everything's going on, because there's the edge of the Triton, there's the ring finger, and the edge of that right there. The pinky's off. Put down the thigh right here. And when I put this thigh marking in, I'm just going to put in, like I said, just a little bit so we can see what's going on, because the thumb comes down across here. It runs actually behind this Triton, and it's going to run right across here. So we won't see much of anything else back there. And then we have the other side of the old rib cage right there. And there's my rib mark right off the diaphragm. And then I'll come out here and I'll put in the sequins and whatnot for the actual shield and stuff that is on his armor. And believe it or not, a lot of people think that that's just a sequin shirt, but it's actually armor. I really, really dig the fact that he wears full body armor. The whole thing is sequined and scaled like chainmail. And that's the reason it's not a scaled effect per se. They just designed his armor as fish scales to look that way back in the Golden Age. And they said that it was all, actually chainmail. So I was really, really cool with that. And always found Aquaman to be really unique because of that. And I mean, it was like, he was an ancient Atlantean knight, as it were, because he would wear that kind of armor. And when his people went under the sea, that was what he said that the armor was for. It was based on that timeline when his people went under the water. So, whatever. With the continuity currently mucked up, you really can't tell what's going on, and you can pick whatever you like. So, you may hear me crunching on my cough drop, and I apologize if that's interrupting or bothering anybody. But I always like to pop it when I talk, because then I rotate it, and it keeps it from being weird and like slipping out of my mouth or something on the card. That would be gross. But yeah, this dude is just awesome. Now I'm doing the classic Kirby style bubbles, because whenever he would draw Namor, he would put these bubbles like this, and it took off big time. I know other artists have done different versions and variations and whatnot, but whenever you see this is classic, where Jack Kirby would cross over into the DC universe and start working for them, into DC and whatnot, when he was working for the different publishers as he moved around. So, because a lot of people don't, till this day, think he's only Marvel. And, Jack was nuts. The dude was everywhere. He was a workhorse. And I know that's my go-to, but it's true. The man was everywhere. Do I have a bromance with him? Absolutely. The dude was awesome. So, yeah. Just phenomenal. Mike Turner did this a lot too. He used to do his rendition. Of course, his stuff was a lot sleeker and, for lack of a better term, sexier. It was always just a little bit more graceful, That was the thing that Mike used to do. And that guy was just phenomenal as well. A lot of people just used to rack on him because of the fact that he would come up and say, well, I'm going to draw this or draw that. And he would have that kind of look about everything he did. And it's like, that's not real comics. Well, he's getting paid to draw. So, and his books are selling like, crazy. So who are you to really say that? Well, I just don't get his style. Well, that's okay. Just don't read his books. So don't take it personal. Just don't read his books. Okay, we have the chest in here. We have the rib cage. We have the back arm. I need to lace in that knuckle right there. A lot of people don't like to do gloves and things like that, but I actually do. I enjoy it because then I can go in and, do these little tweaks and things. Like that. And I try not to cross-hatch and stuff too much or feather stuff too much because then it gets all weird. Now what I'm going to do to finish this up is I'm going to go in here and detail out this side of the Triton just a little and make it look a little bit more metallic. And then I'm going to go in there and put in those, like I said, those sequins. I'm going to put the bottom of that thumb there so you can see. He's got a thumb. It's posable. Isn't that nice? So, anyway. What I'm going to do is put a little mark right there. Make that pop up. But, yeah. I love doing this kind of stuff because these classic characters just don't get enough credit. And they really don't. We need to do more with these types of books and bring these comics out and back because everybody's like, well, you need the modern anti-hero. Well, if everybody's an anti-hero, who's going to be your go-to superhero when you need somebody that can't handle it because they're human or they don't have the capabilities or skills or power to do something else in these great stories? The whole purpose of the anti-hero is to go more urban and go light, where they handle the day-to-day stuff, and you have the classic hero that is trying to do the right thing with the bigger monsters that, don't need to be beating up on muggers. So think about that one. That's a huge step forward. Now, I'm going to go in and do these scales, and I'm going to do this very simple. I'm going to do not necessarily the Captain America, sequined look, but I'm going to go in and put in just a few here and there because I don't want to go in and type out every freaking little sequin because it makes it look weird to me. I would prefer the light to hit just a couple of dominating sequences of the sequence, and I don't want it to cross over and start, making weird shapes and stuff too, so I'm trying to be careful of that. But like this one here, just pop in a couple and it really pops it out and your brain says, okay, wow, that's sequined. We've got it. And most people fail to do that because they want to draw in every freaking sequin that you can. And then it's like, you overworked it. He's just blah. Don't do that. Because it's not, depending on the light fraction, depending on the direction of the shadows and what's pending in what's showing and what's not, you can really ruin this stuff. And don't do that. Now, when you're drawing on the back shoulder of these sequins, be sure to turn them the other direction because they go down his back. And this is the back of his shoulder here and the back. So be sure to do that because if you don't, it'll look funky. If you make them go this direction, it'll look like he's not whole. So don't do that. And I'm going to put in just the back edge of that shoulder, that other lat where his chest is curved. And you'll be able to see that because his arms are both up. So we want to have that come out that way, and we're going to see a little bit of his back. Now down here on his leg, same thing. His gloves don't have them, but his legs do. Okay, his body has the armor. And I want to put in just a couple. And I want to make sure that I put in just enough of a curvature to where they show up, because I don't want them to, get weird or anything like that. I've seen professional artists do this, and they put them too close together, or they'll put two and leave it alone, and you don't want to have it look like a butt or something goofy like that, for the kids to come in and go, look, it's a butt. Don't do that. That's something that a lot of people just don't pay attention to. And yeah, if you want to be a professional, don't plant stuff subconsciously, because you don't pay attention when you're actually doing it. A lot of people will do that, and it's just crazy. But now we can put him under the water. His hair is flowing a little bit, got the bubbles going on, got the trident, the 5-point trident, by the way. It's got the extra 2 prongs right here on the side. So that's how we're going to do it, okay? Hey, Jim, glad you made it, man. Tom, thank you very much for hanging out as always. I appreciate it, buddy. But yeah, a lot of this is flat out, I'm going to put in these details because I don't like leaving them hanging to where he doesn't look right. He needs this shading to pull it out because he's under the water. But yeah, it's hard to make Aquaman look cool, There's so many people out there that just say, Aquaman sucks. Well, make him look cool. Stop making him look like a hippie. But no offense to hippies. It's just a cliche and me being goofy, fooling around. But, don't make him long-haired and change him from what he is. And don't make him, lose his hand or anything weird like that and give up body parts and whatnot. Just to make a change with him and make him what you think is cool. Because it doesn't fly that way. Make the character hold up to his original status and power and longevity, because he's been around forever. Why not make him last, for the next generation? So, but there you go. We have it. We have Aquaman. The guy does look awesome. I really, really am proud of this card. Thank you very much for joining me on this Sunday. And tomorrow we have, for Monday, Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle. Is it going to be Ted Cord? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. So until then, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. This is card number 117. Can you believe this? That's nuts. I've been doing this for 117 straight days. So, anyway, thank you so much for the appreciation and support, you guys. Talk to you tomorrow.